I would like to introduce a topic to this channel, one that's very close to my heart, and that is the sport of bodybuilding. I have 5 favorites as all-time greats, and I'll feature them on this channel. And today we're going to start with our first bodybuilder. He's quite well known to us. He needs no introductions. He was known as the Giant Killer. He was the most aesthetic. One of the greatest posers of all time. Was the most controversial. Hello, my name is Bola Latunji. Welcome to Shawn Ray's epic showdown in the Battle of the Giants. And in this video, we're going to see just how good was Shawn Ray, who was he up against, and what threat did they pose to Shawn Ray. There are very few bodybuilders that emerged on the scene in the 80s. Their career persevered into the 90s and early 2000s with high placings. One of the alleged statements from some of the judges, Shawn Ray's physique hardly improved from the time he came on the scene when he won the 1987 NPC Nationals to the time he retired, or at least towards the end of his career. And we'll see if that statement's true, because his weight fluctuated between 198 and 205, 210 pounds. I think his heaviest was 221 pounds. But we'll look at his physique to see just how his physique changed or didn't change to keep up with the upcoming champions. To begin with, let us look at the beginning of Shawn Ray's career, where he gained his passport to compete on the world stage at the 1987 NPC Nationals. JJ Marsh, Ron Coleman, which isn't Ronnie Coleman. He sent a message to the pros. I've just set a new standard for the term professional, and I'm coming after you. He didn't place too well at the 1988 Mr. Olympia, but he came back in 1990 and beat legendary bodybuilders and Olympias such as Samir Bannout, Rich Gaspari. We had Robbie Robertson up there. We had Mike Christian, just to name a few of the greats. These are great bodybuilders, and we can see just how unique he was on the scene. It wasn't about his size, it was about his proportions. Anyway, coming back on topic, Shawn Ray. Let's compare his physiques across the spectrum of contenders from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s and see how good was he. This lineup tells its own story, from past champions to current and future. So we can see who Shawn Ray is up against. These are the top 6 finalists, starting from left: Robbie Robinson, Mike Christian, Andreas Munzer, Shawn Ray, Samir Bannout, and Mike Ashley. Shawn Ray, the new sensation on the scene, was nothing like anyone had ever seen before in terms of posing, in terms of presentation, and proportions. This was a great muscle fest where the 6 top professionals fight it out for first place, old and new. And if muscles could fight one another without physical contact, this is the sport for it.
Runner-up spot, $25,000 to Mike Ashley. Mike Ashley.
This was the first drug-tested competition in the 1990 Arnold Schwarzenegger Classic, and unfortunately, Shawn Ray failed the drug test as well as many others. And the other bodybuilders who also failed the drug test were also exposed, and this made Shawn Ray feel like the Ben Johnson of bodybuilding. Shawn Ray would have to come back the following year in the 1991 Arnold Schwarzenegger Classic and clear his name and win the show. Although the check and trophy was awarded to the second runner-up Mike Ashley, this was still a victory for Shawn Ray for beating legendary champions. We have Lee Haney, Rich Gaspari, Mike Christian, Lee Labrada, Francis Benfato and Shawn Ray. Perhaps the top in the game, Lee Haney being the dominant one. I think this was 7th Mr. Olympia, and it was also the first drug-tested Mr. Olympia. So the bodybuilders are a lot smaller in size compared to previous years. We have some really great physiques. Francis Benfato, one that Shawn Ray admires and for his aesthetics. Lee Labrada for his balance. Coming off the 1990 Arnold Schwarzenegger Classic, Shawn was confident to stand next to anyone, including Lee Haney, trying to expose what he doesn't have and also to compare his balance and symmetry with the reigning champion. If you look at Mike Christian in this shot here, very muscular, very dense in the back, delts and arms. He appears to be top heavy, lacking in the leg department. How does it flow with the other body parts? And do some of the smaller bodybuilders have body parts that fit better? They may not be as muscular, but they're more in proportion. Lee Haney's physique is coming off the look of the early 1980s, and when comparing him to later bodybuilders, their physiques appear to be more complete in the leg department. Again, different eras have different looks. Let's remember, Shawn is the youngest man on the stage and he's competing against guys who have more muscle maturity and density. His symmetry and proportions set him apart from the rest. From 13th to 3rd, 10 places up, he proved himself as one of the elite amongst the best. You can tell from the boos the crowd was displeased. He should have placed higher, and that's the problem with bodybuilding. It's subjective, and therefore favoritism and politics come into play. Here we have the 1991 Arnold Schwarzenegger Classic. From left to right we have Vince Taylor, Shawn Ray, JJ Marsh, Thierry Pastel, Renan Geneva and Steve Bivbra. And some of these competitors Shawn has beaten in the NPC National, JJ Marsh and Vince Taylor. Here they've put on a little bit more mass, giving Shawn a little bit more of a fight. Each year that goes by, the margin of the gap of you being ahead of the game gets narrower and narrower as the champions are able to fill out their frame, whilst they perfect their symmetry and balance. This is a great competition and a great day for Shawn to clear his name. Despite the stiff competition, it came down to Shawn Ray and Renan Geneva. And Shawn Ray did it again. He cleared his name. What a victory. Two-time Arnold Schwarzenegger Classic champion. Dorian had made an appearance in 1991, Mr. Olympia, with his face-off against Lee Haney, weighing 235 pounds. Dorian was from England. The hopes and dreams rested on his shoulders, but he gave Lee Haney a close run for his money. But we'd have to wait another year before we see Dorian grace the stage again. In addition to everyone waiting to see the shadow re-emerge, there were new contenders on the scene. We had Flex Wheeler, a bodybuilder from Fresno, California, with aesthetics and lines and muscle bellies that had never been seen before. He brought finesse, he brought charisma, and he brought beauty to the scene. If he could win the competition alone on aesthetics, he would win this competition 10 years straight. Then we had Kevin Levrone, the silent assassin, one who had the best delts and chest in the business. Last not least, Paul Dillett, the human skyscraper. The stage wasn't enough to contain him at the Arnold Classic. This bodybuilder looked like he was created in a lab. 270 pounds of sheer mass. And in the middle of this, we had the 5'6", 250 pounds Shawn Ray. Where Shawn Ray lacked in mass, he made up for mastery of perfection, size, symmetry, and aesthetics. That he was there not just to win a competition, but to make a statement. That he's here to create a legacy. This is the Battle of the Giants.
If I'm ever going to win the Mr. Olympia from these mass monsters, I'm going to win it solely on the fact that they want to go a different direction with the look of bodybuilding. And the only way that they can do that is go with something totally to the opposite extreme. Shape, definition, balance, and symmetry, and that's what I possess. And I'm bringing that professionalism to the stage and putting it up against the giants.
Here's the 1993 Mr. Olympia, and Dorian upped his game, or he is the giant, causing everyone else to up their game. And standing, I think Shawn's got the best relaxed pose. Front double bicep pose, flex wheeler, then Shawn Ray, then Dorian. Dorian just comes with so much mass that it's very difficult to stand next to him unless you bring something unique. And Shawn and Flex both bring something unique to the stage when it comes to symmetry, balance, proportion, beauty and aesthetics with the physique. Whereas Dorian brings raw Herculean brute mass. It is a case of the rough with the smooth. But here we can see in terms of who's in shape, I'd say Shawn Ray is cut to shreds. You can see it in the glutes, hams, lower back. Flex Wheeler's not as cut as he could be, but it's enough for second place. He's got a killer back. I think that Shawn has more detail in his back, not so much density as Flex Wheeler. Boom. Despite the change in the current look that the judges were looking for, you have to give Dorian his dues. He came in the biggest he's ever been, and perhaps the strongest of all the years he competed. And this is the reason why the 1993 Mr. Olympia champion cannot be disputed. Three bodybuilders are well developed. It's just about how the pieces fit together. The side tricep, Dorian wins hands down. But when it comes to the beauty, look at Shawn's serratus, that pose. None of them can hit that pose, and he brings something unique to take down the giants. Shawn's serratus and obliques is more complete than Flex's. The caliber of the competitors was at its highest in terms of size, condition, separation, and aesthetics. This is an important comparison as it represents aesthetics at the highest level, and it's credit to Levrone to be among them. When competing against the giants, you need to up your game in terms of size. The driving force for aesthetics in the 80s was Levrone, but in the 90s, Shawn and Flex. Flex has got the best, most muscular crab, but on this occasion, Shawn's consistency to bring the condition, striation, and separation in the chest. Shawn's taking you to school, Flex.
Quarter turn to the right. Quarter turn to the right. Quarter turn to the right. Quarter turn facing front. Front double bicep. Lat spread. Side chest. Turn to the rear. One leg back showing the calf. double bicep. Lat spread. Side tricep. Turn to the front, abdominal and thigh. Gentlemen, relax. And if the music man's ready, pose down.
Shawn could hold his own. And let's not to mention that the bodybuilder that can easily beat Shawn due to the perfection of that physique is Flex Wheeler. And very difficult for Shawn to beat Flex unless Flex is well off. Here we have the top 6 finalists of the 1994 Mr. Olympia: Paul Dillett, Peter Cottrell, Chris Cormier, Kevin Levrone, Dorian Yates and Shawn Ray. But let's start with Paul Dillett. This bodybuilder graced the stage with such colossal size that it was one to stand in awe to admire the sheer size of this bodybuilder. Paul Dillett, as big as he was, there's some things that he lacked in stage presence. Holding certain poses together, looking at the arms and traps overpowering the back, and not having the 20/20 vision to see how everything should fit harmoniously together. This was a great example that size alone does not make one a champion. The battle was for second place. Kevin Levrone did come in quite hard, not as thick as other years, but Shawn just came in as a razor sharp with those feathered quads. Very hard to beat with his consistent condition. It came down to the final two, a choice of Dorian and Shawn Ray. And from the front, and this lighting in these shots look pretty good, and from the back we can't see any flaws as such from Dorian. Shawn, the condition, ripped, cut, the detail on that back is insane. The lighting in this shot looks good, and the margin between first and second looks pretty slim, but in the video, truth tells all in terms of condition. Again, standing in a relaxed pose, you're supposed to have all the muscles on display. Again, you can see all the muscles on Shawn, but on Dorian, pretty hard to see. His condition wasn't the best. The muscles weren't separated. He was a little bloated in the belly, and from the front, he just didn't look sharp, especially when he hit the front double biceps. You could see the peak. From the back, it was pretty hard to tell in terms of the biceps. On the left arm, you could see it was not as high. Again, these shots in black and white aren't as truthful compared to when you see the video. The detail on Shawn's back, glutes and hams, incredible. This was like the Porsche versus the Rolls Royce, and any day I'd rather choose the Porsche in terms of its look and aesthetics. You see the width, we know Dorian's going to take Shawn on the width, but when you look at the lower half of the body, the glutes, the calves, the tie-ins, hands down, Shawn wins on this one. Not everything was judged based on look. Some of it was based on the reigning champion's reputation. Today's bodybuilding, he should be judged on today's condition. And if you don't win it, you'll have to come back the following year to reclaim the title.
The silver Sandow medal being given by Gentle Doche of Pro Fitness USA. And the second place plaque being given by Ray Boudreau of Body Masters. These awards will be given to competitor number 7, Shawn Ray.
How could Dorian win? Was a bodybuilder by the name of Nasser El Sonbaty. Just won the 1994 Night of Champions. He was nicknamed the Professor from Yugoslavia. At 5 feet 11, at 270 pounds, a new giant had arrived on the scene, slowly emerging from the 1994 Mr. Olympia onwards. The battle had upped its stakes. Like all casualties of war, it comes with its own psychological trauma. And Shawn Ray, as well as he was competing against these colossal giants, psychological aspects taking its toll on Shawn. And this is to do with the fundamentals behind the scenes, the judging system.
At the Mr. Olympia contest and you start going down the weights of the bodybuilders. 274 with Jurassic Paul Dillett, 255 with Dorian Yates, 4-time Mr. Olympia, 253 with Kevin Levrone, and 264 with Nasser El Sonbaty. That all sounds impressive. But when you start breaking it down and analyzing bodybuilding for what it's supposed to be, the shape, the symmetry, the genetics, the balance, the pleasing tone of the skin, the color of the skin, the tie-ins on the muscles, it's really hard for me to understand how some of these guys are winning contests and placing in places that I don't think they deserve. That's why every year, whether I take it on the chin or not, I get up and I come back. And I don't think every year I should be Mr. Olympia, but every year I think I should have the opportunity to be compared with and fight with Mr. Olympia.
So let's move on now to the next transitional phase of our comparison, the 1996 Mr. Olympia. Here we have the 1996 Mr. Olympia. Again, we have a repeat of the 1994 lineup. We have Shawn Ray and Dorian Yates. However, his arms do look a little thin and slim compared to previous years. His delts overpower his arms. If he couldn't take Dorian down in 1994 at his worst, he won't be able to take him down in 1996. Not in this current judging system. This was a new, improved, stronger Dorian Yates. But Shawn could stand his ground next to the giants. You do not need to outmatch the champion size-wise to be able to compete with him. But equally, Shawn's back is as detailed and as separated and worthy of being compared to the reigning champion. Here we have Nasser, Kevin and Shawn. Now in this front double bicep shot, it's not just the biceps we look at, but look at the thickness in the chest area. Nasser looks very impressive in this shot. Look at that vacuum in that V-taper in Shawn. I think they've got great silhouettes, each of them for their own unique packages. We can see from the front lat spread that Kevin is the widest, possibly even Nasser, then Shawn. Kevin Levrone has got to be one of the most powerful bodybuilders. His physique screams power, freakish in the arms, delts, shoulders, and he has got one of the best side chests in the business. But when compared to other body parts and other poses such as the back, it's not as freaky, it's not as powerful, and this is the reason why Shawn was the consummate professional, because it's very difficult to find a weakness in Shawn's physique when comparing him to other bodybuilders. Every Olympia champion has a killer back to dominate. This emphasizes the uniqueness of Shawn's physique being complete. Don't underestimate the David who'll take out the Goliaths. Oh yeah. This is a great shot. We've got two giants, Dorian, Nasser and Shawn. We know Dorian's going to be the thickest and the widest, and Nasser's coming into his own, pretty close in terms of matching up to Dorian, but again Shawn can hold his own in displaying detail and separation, and also being defined as he is, competing against the two giants. That back, we can just see that Shawn's back there is probably is maxed out. It couldn't get any wider there. Dorian, no problem, and the taller you are, the wider your back should be. Here we have Dorian, Shawn and Ronnie. I think Shawn Ray's got probably the best relaxed pose there is out there. Just look at the abdominals on show, on display. You've got the quads on Shawn, the abdominals, everything seems to be on display on the face front. From the side we can see the density and thickness of Dorian and Ronnie, and also Shawn, who has a slightly tighter midsection. Here from the back we can see the muscularity in the two bodybuilders, Dorian and Ronnie. However, not as detailed as Shawn, especially in the hamstrings and the lower back. A repeat of 94, second place finish. He's always the one behind pushing the champion. Here we have the 97 Mr. Olympia, one of the toughest lineups ever. Lee Priest, Dorian Yates, Dillett, Nasser El Sonbaty, Shawn Ray and Kevin Levrone. We can just see here, this would have been a tough competition, and credit to Lee Priest, who's able to stand amongst them, being the smallest guy there. This just goes to show that perfection and balance according to your own frame, not in comparison to the others, which shows just how pleasing to the eye you will appear to the judges. The placings in this Mr. Olympia could pretty much repeat the 1996 Mr. Olympia. Shawn's condition was still on point. Dorian and Nasser came in cut, and the flavour of the season is mass, and aesthetics is less rewarded or recognised amongst these giants, and no one wants to come to a show and see the same repeat placings of the previous year, so they switched things up this year. Of course, Dorian won this competition, second was Nasser El Sonbaty, and third was Shawn Ray. A great victory for Shawn, just goes to show that he can still hold his own. Again, it's a real credit to him to be able to survive this long in the game. Whereas when we looked at him in the 1990s, he was far ahead of the game. We can just see in just a short space of time where bodybuilders had up and coming could overtake him now due to size and the trend of the current look. There was a bodybuilder slowly climbing the ranks, unnoticed, undetected, from 1992. Many of these bodybuilders had beaten him multiple times, and he arrived in 1998.
Mr. Ronnie Coleman!
At 5 feet 11, there was a new giant on the scene, and up the stakes for the battle, 248 pounds of shredded muscle. Here we have the 1998 Mr. Olympia. We have Kevin Levrone, Nasser El Sonbaty, we have Flex Wheeler, Shawn Ray, Chris Cormier and Ronnie Coleman. But we know just how difficult it is for Shawn to beat Flex Wheeler at his best, so we can expect placings to shift down one. This was a great lineup, one of the greatest ever. When you have other bodybuilders that join the lineup, such as Chris Cormier, it makes it that much more difficult for the judges when comparing him to the likes of Shawn Ray, Flex Wheeler and Ronnie Coleman. He's a bodybuilder who also had great symmetry. The buzz for this Mr. Olympia must have been unreal due to Dorian's absence. So the 1998 Mr. Olympia, a tough show, and placings were Ronnie Coleman first, second Flex Wheeler, third Nasser El Sonbaty, fourth Kevin Levrone and fifth Shawn Ray. Shawn has beaten Kevin Levrone multiple times, and it's very rare that Kevin would beat Shawn. He'd have to be on his A game, but Again, anyone taller than 5'6" is a giant to Shawn because they can put that much more mass on their frame and you'd be wider. And remember, aesthetics is less rewarded now. This is the era of the monsters. So the bigger you are, the better, especially when being compared to the likes of Ronnie. The size of the dog that matters. It's the fight in the dog that counts. Now, this has got to be one of the best lineups ever. This is the 1999 Mr. Olympia. And as we can see here, what a great lineup. In their relaxed poses and their front double biceps. It's very hard for you to be able to determine who is going to be the top three. This is a bodybuilder from the late 80s, early 90s. In fact, Shawn Ray got 5th in this competition, and you have to give it to him. And if you made it to the top 6, it is a real credit and accolade for that athlete to be in that top 6. Everyone was on their A game. They'd put on more size, more definition, symmetry, and just think of how many giants are on this stage that possess such beauty, such strength, balance, and proportion. They're all champions in their own right. Bit aggressive there for Flex. You see there, Shawn can stand next to Ronnie. He can stand next to Flex. Kevin, Chris, he can hold his own. He got 5th in this competition. Have to take my hat off to this athlete, Shawn Ray. He is a formidable athlete. He is the consummate professional. He is the one that if you do not come with your boxes ticked, he will take you out. The sniper, the bodybuilder with a license to kill. Flex Wheeler brought a really good condition, one that would rival the 93 Olympia. As we can see in this crab, really muscular, still not as cut as Shawn, but not far off. When looking at the separation of the deltoids, chest, quads and arms, he hasn't been able to top the 1993 Arnold Classic condition. Look at King Coleman, that size, that separated, incredible. What a foe, Ronnie Coleman, an anomaly of nature, being able to dominate the destinies of others. Land of the Giants. This is the 2001 Mr. Olympia. We skipped the 2000 because the competitors and places are pretty much similar. And being that this is Shawn's last Mr. Olympia, we're going to see how he fares and stacks up against bodybuilders such as Jay Cutler and Ronnie Coleman. These are the mass monsters. This ain't no place for fragile physiques or physiques with weaknesses. And we can see this is Shawn's physique. He's put on a little bit more weight on this for this show. And he's perhaps not the best condition we've seen him in the part previously. And we've got bodybuilders such as Chris Cormier who've come into their own, really polished up. And again, we don't have Flex Wheeler here, so new blood he has seen emerge on the stage and being able to beat them. And here we have Orville Burke, we have Chris Cormier, we have Jay Cutler, and amongst all this, the new breed, Shawn was able to place 4th. Just shows just how complete, unique and phenomenal he was in being able to hold back other giants. This would have been a case of winner takes all for 2nd place, as Flex Wheeler is not competing in the 2001 Mr. Olympia. We can see this is as far as Shawn's physique could take him. He did really well. He took 4th place amongst these monsters here, which is going to be a real feat for him. Combination of things that make up a champion. It's about how aesthetic you are, how you pose, your proportions, your symmetry, your condition, your presentation, and your stage presence. If you can combine all those things together with your God-given genetics, you should be able to fare well. If you lack in one or the other, then someone who's been given far more God-given genetics may have an edge over you. And it was very difficult for anyone to have an edge over someone who's just born gracefully with great genetics, who got it right from the start by training with one of the top pros, John Brown. How are you going to beat that? You're either going to overpower this bodybuilder with sheer mass, or you need a greater version of Shawn Ray. That appeared on the scene in 1992, Flex Wheeler. when he won the NPC Nationals. However, comparing the two together, I would say Shawn Ray's physique is more complete in terms of development, the serratus, the abdominals, it flows better. And I would say he was the most consistent. As we see, Shawn Ray would have taken the 1994 Mr. Olympia and possibly the 1996 Mr. Olympia in the absence of Flex Wheeler. A modern day era of bodybuilding split between mass and aesthetics. One is less dedicated towards condition, and one more dedicated towards aesthetics. Where would Shawn Ray fare today if he had to compete? Shawn competed today with the 1999 condition, he would win the Olympia today, even in his 1994 condition. Imagine that, because the proportions and the balance and symmetry was more than today's bodybuilders. Today's bodybuilders may not even place in the top 10. And I think Dexter Jackson was probably the last of that era, even though bodybuilders such as Shawn Ray and Flex Wheeler beat Dexter Jackson. Let's continue.
Now that's what I'm talking about. Cannot finish the video without talking about Shawn Ray's posing routines. His posing routines are second to none. I've not seen another bodybuilder who can display what he has built over time in the most graceful way possible. It's almost as if he brought ballet to the stage. And the most graceful thing about his posing routine is how he transitions from one pose to another. The selection of the tracks he uses makes you want to play them in your mind with Shawn Ray posing. They are just great. The way he moves to it, he really knows how to captivate his audience with his physique. My best posing routine, it would have to be the 1987 NPC Nationals, where he posed to Jennifer Holliday, I'm Telling You're Not Going, followed by Gladys Knight, License to Kill. All his posing routines are great. And it's nice to see an athlete put so much time and effort into his craft. He didn't sell himself short in this respect. It's difficult to even conceive how other bodybuilders who don't put so much into their posing routine can beat him in the posing round. But that's another story for another day. So the question is, did Shawn Ray's physique improve over time? So the question we need to ask is, could the 1990 Shawn Ray or NPC Shawn Ray stand next to Nasser, stand next to Ronnie Coleman, stand next to Kevin? No. But the later Shawn Rays could, because of the small incremental changes made over time. The form is pretty much the same. There's small incremental details from the time he came on the scene right up until the end of his career. That's all it needed to polish to be able to take down the giants. And whereas other bodybuilders needed to put on 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds, Shawn Ray's physique was already maxed out. The maximum he would actually put on is about 220-ish pounds for his frame, and that was in 1999, where it was pretty much a good year for all the bodybuilders size-wise. If he put on too much weight, he would lose that balance, he would lose the artisticness, trying to play the mass game. Shawn excelled in overtaking the giants. And as Ronnie Coleman, he knew what it was like to be able to be taken out by little guys. If you use the penknife the most effective way, it can take down the giant, knowing where to hit. And Shawn Ray was a guy who knew how to hit. He pulled off poses and angles that other bodybuilders just didn't have, especially with that serratus and abdominals that he had. But in the sport of bodybuilding, everyone moves forward in terms of how they improve their physique, either mass or symmetry. As long as he's making improvements over time, it's enough to be able to take down the giants. Oh yeah. There you have it, people. My take on Shawn Ray, on how good was he in the Battle of the Giants. I think we've seen enough to know that he could hold his own. He was that good. And the old breed of bodybuilders had great genetics. And I think it was just knowing what you wanted to do at the time and knowing how far you can take your physique. Would it last you 10 years in the game? Or would it only last you a few years, depending on when you appeared on the scene. Those guys are lucky that I didn't interfere with their winning streak. Who knows what could have been if Bola was on the scene. You know, I could have literally have taken my own spotlight. But I let them have their winning streak. History is as it is because I didn't interfere. Yeah. So, my friends, until next time, lights up.
Of making progress on an individual level and not trying to please everybody all of the time. Or you can self-destruct and get mad at the judges and lash out at the fans and get mad at your competitors because of your own shortcomings. I've turned bodybuilding into a positive for me. No longer am I doing it just for myself. I realize there's a lot of people pulling for me, supporting me. I'm trying not to let them down, but at the same time keep my head up and remember where I came from and keep my eye on where I'm going, and that is straight to the top of the Mr. Olympia.
Now that's what I call posing.
If you want to watch my commentary on just how unique Jim Kelly was, watch this video.